So a couple things. We were talking back there, and we were talking about how fun this industry is. I mean, we were just saying how lucky we are and what a great time it's been, and that's how I feel. I too stumbled into this business. I'll talk a little bit about that. But to be in e-commerce, you got to be innovative. I was just innovative in the bathroom back there. Spilled a little water as I was getting ready. You know those hand drying machines? Okay, I had my hands in the dryer trying to get my shirt dried at the same time. It's a good use of technology. So I want to thank, where'd Phil go? Phil and Helena, thank you very much for the invite to Australia and to this wonderful conference. I really appreciate it. You and your team have done a beautiful job, so thank you. I also, I love building companies, and I enjoy the intersection of retail and technology. That's my focus. And wait, there's something missing here.
Oh, wait, sorry.
Thank you. You know, this was in the contract.
Yeah.
Did you guys see this? Green M&Ms? This is this was something Phil and I, the green M&M thing is something that Phil and I talked about. I put it into the contract. He was like, hey, Bob, you got to get out here and et cetera. And I went back and forth, and kind of in the email I said, you have to have green M&Ms in my dressing room, right? Trying to be the high maintenance guy. So I'm sitting back there just a little bit ago, and I mentioned it jokingly. And they're all like, oh, we didn't have time. They come out with this bowl of green M&Ms. I mean, so it's kind of the detail my friend Phil works on. So I love building great companies and great brands. I've done it for a lot of years, and I just really, really enjoy it. So much so I've been in e-commerce since the early days. We're going to talk a little bit about that. My family's here. We're going to talk a little bit about that. My son and my family have lived this with me my whole career. And I'll give you one little story as to how much it affects my family. I got a call about 6 months ago from my oldest son, Zach, and he says, Dad, I had the weirdest dream. And I go, why? What happened? He goes, Dad, you were just walking along, and you got hit and killed by a shopping cart. Okay, who dreams this shit unless your dad's in e-commerce, right? So it's wild. Also, this is the family that I was talking about. We came to Australia about 2 weeks ago. We landed in Sydney and we had a couple days there, and it's been wonderful. And we went from Sydney to Melbourne to Hamilton Island. We're here. My wife and I are going home soon. Tomorrow morning, my two boys, men, big, taller. They're staying for a couple more weeks. I don't know what they're going to do here. It's right, pretty boring place. But anyway, we were talking about this, and I wanted to show you some family photos here, and I classified them under the top 6. I couldn't come up with 5. 6 most dangerous things that the Schwartz family has determined to be the most dangerous things here in Australia. Frickin' adorable, cute, dangerous. So we went out there and we held the koalas and did all that. Oh my God, you guys have the cutest frickin' animals here. And this guy shows up on our deck one day when we're out on Hamilton Island. I mean, that is, it's a heartbreaking danger. Number 5, what the is this? What is this thing? So my sons come up to me after day 1 being here, and they're like, Dad, we saw this fruit. It looks like somebody sneezed in it. That's got to be dangerous. It just absolutely has to be. All right, Australia, natural beauty. So we had the pleasure of flying over and looking at one of the world's greatest things, the Barrier Reef, which was spectacular. The natural beauty of what went on Hamilton Island. You see up in the corner there, you see the moon, and actually Venus was dropping down under it. Breathtaking, absolutely breathtaking. We're in love with the dangerous beauty that's here. Okay, come on. Come on, see how this maroon and blue shit that was going on yesterday? Come on, right? This is not how you play football. This is how you play football. You wear pads, right? You wear pads because people are big and they hit each other. This is very dangerous, guys. You have to stop, all right? Number 2 most dangerous thing we saw was at the Currumbin Wildlife Sanctuary. There's this woman standing there, and we went down to the crocodile feeding zone, And from the side, we walked to the crocodile area, and we could see from the sides 2 crocs in there. And we're like, let's go over there. It's pretty cool. So we walked up behind them, and these things are the size of Mack trucks. I mean, they are enormous. That's what we saw. That thing is huge. That is not safe. And I understand those things actually wander around the territory here. Okay, so that is number 2. So you say, if that's number 2, what possibly is the number 1 most dangerous thing that the Schwartz family came up with? Pretty damn simple. Here it is. A meal, for God's sakes? People, what are you doing here? All right, so that's the top things. Get that volume up. This is when I started selling things online, okay? Sound familiar to some of you? A little reminiscent? Okay, evns8888@prodigy.com, that was me. I still started selling Prodigies. I started selling computers on Prodigy, right? Before there was the internet. And my big aha kind of about the internet wasn't when the internet was there, it was both doing that and going to QVC, the big shopping channel in the States. And I'm watching our guy from Packard Bell Computers on stage with the host, and as they're talking, I'm watching real call volume and real sales volume. And I'm like, if you could just TiVo back in your mind, you'd know what you said to trigger that kind of call volume and to trigger that kind of sales volume. You would know kind of your direct marketing messaging. Where during that time, if you go back to if you were in the direct marketing business prior, we used to have to send out mailers, wait an A and a B and a C, wait 3 months till you had to write cells and write tests, send again and send again. You could do this in real time, and I was smitten. I just thought the internet was just the most interesting thing possible. Then I migrated from selling on Prodigy when the internet came, migrated online, and continued to grow. So what I've done since then is it's, like I said in the introduction, over $1 billion of value for shareholders and companies. And I just love doing this. It's a lot of fun. And I've had great experience doing some really interesting companies. We'll talk about Nordstrom, and we'll dive into the Magento story a little bit. And we'll talk a little bit about Tamando and some of these others. And we'll talk about what I believe to be some of the most important things to building a successful company in technology. I think it was Phil, or it was one of the earlier speakers. No, it was Phil. Phil talked about the tenets of, or the commandments of PeSA, and one was secrets without fear. Okay, so honey, don't get worried. I'm not going to tell those secrets. But I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do is, this is a great story, $1 billion of value to shareholders and founders and all that, but the truth is, Amazon.com. So, young family, I was selling computers online. Jeff Bezos moves to Seattle. I'm originally a Seattle guy, and now down in Los Angeles. Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, moves to Seattle. I meet him at a party. We start talking. He knows I'm selling computers online. He says, come meet my wife and I for lunch. And he takes me to his office. He has about 15 developers in there, and he's telling me I'm going to sell books online. It's called Amazon. I'm like, Amazon? Why? What? We sat down and we talked for a little bit, and Jeff made me an offer to be his first marketing guy, his CMO, right? My answer to Jeff was, I can't afford to do that, right? Because I had a family and kids and et cetera. I could own this facility if I had said yes to him, right? So the secrets and the truth. Later on you'll see I'll bring up Howard Schultz, the CEO of Starbucks, right? Being a Seattle guy, and Howard Schultz and Starbucks being a Seattle-based company, I had the opportunity to actually invest when he had his first store and was doing his first round of investing. Coffee? Who the hell would pay $3 to $4 for a cup of coffee? Right? That's nonsense. I didn't drink coffee. A buddy of mine and his family invested, and he took me down there. He had you get a little card. And with that card, you got to go down to the original store, and you get a free cup of coffee. He goes, come on, Bob, I'll get you a cup of coffee. I go, I don't drink this stuff. He goes, give him a mocha. Okay, getting a mocha is like giving a kid a candy bar with LSD injected in it, right? Since then, it's cost me nothing but money. So I guess I put this up there because it speaks a little bit towards what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about building great brands and companies in a tech-driven world. The story I tell, the story that was told before I got here, that's my story. That's my brand. The truth is, there's landmines and there's pitfalls, and some of those companies up there don't exist much in a very big way anymore, and some of the other ones that didn't even make up there, I don't even want to talk about, right? But this is the story that I made for my brand and that I live by. So we're going to talk about stories of companies and very successful companies. And it's my hope that when we get all done, that you look at things a little bit differently in the way you're approaching your companies and the way you're building things. So here at these kind of events, you have breakout sessions and you have, what do you call them, your channels and your different sessions out there. And you learn about conversion and all the important things, recommendation engines, upsells, cross-sells, technology, et cetera. I'm not going to talk about any of that, right? I know it well, I enjoy it, but I think there's people in this audience that know it better. I've seen some of the breakouts. There's some really smart people. That's not what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about how to change your business and challenge the way you look at it. So there's about 45 slides. I'm going to tell you some stories, and hopefully you'll enjoy it, and we'll get through it in less than 34 minutes. Okay? So here's the premise. Retail is going through massive change. Right? It's not new to you, but it's something where we're going to start our story. We aren't here on the change. We aren't here on the change. We're down here. And what this is about is this is where I'm betting everything on right now, and I think it's a very sane bet. I think it's what you're all betting on, is that retail is going through this massive change, and we're just at the beginning of this. I had a conversation with a major Fortune 500 CEO about this about a year ago, and I said, we're not here, we're right here at the beginning of this change. He goes, that's why I'm going to spend billions of dollars going after it. So what's this change about? In the US, these are the cool companies that over the last 15, 20 years, we were really the cool guys. As brick and mortar suffering and everything's languishing out there, we're the cool guys. We're the internet guys. We're growing up this way and we're taking off, and these companies up here they're blasting. They're taking off, they're doing well. We've spent billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars on this category. Okay? So it's fantastic, and we're the cool guys. E-commerce rocks. The truth of the matter that you may know is at the end of the day, e-commerce sales still represents only 5 to 10% of all retail. 5 to 10% of all retail. So what's that mean? What's that curve look like? That curve I'm talking about, where we're at the beginning of it, is this. 9 times what we're already all excited about. 9 times that opportunity exists. Mark Andreessen will tell you that everything is moving online. Mark Andreessen, founder of Netscape, big venture guy. I think he's on the eBay's board. I might be wrong about that. But Mark will say it's all going online. I don't think that's really what he means, but we're going to talk about what I think it means. If everything went online and you emptied every retailer, every physical retailer out there, every physical retail box that was out there, I contend there'd be smart people like here in this audience that would go build really cool, innovative ideas in these physical presence. So I don't believe retail's going away. To me, what it gets down to is we have to change the way we think about what we do every day. So e-commerce, I was born into e-commerce. When I was at Nordstrom, they called me E-Bob. I'm saying it's time to retire the E. And let's start talking about commerce. And to get your mind, words matter a lot to me. They matter a lot to me. So I want you to think about not e-commerce, not commerce, not technology-enabled commerce, but I want you to think about it as technology-enabled retail. We talk about this word omni-channel today. With all the Fortune 500 companies, all the retailers, they talk about this word omni-channel. It means nothing. We're trying to give it meaning. I think it means nothing. To me, technology-enabled retail means how do you use technology to enable retail? Online, offline, on mobile, wherever you are. So if you go out with that perspective, if you leave here with that perspective, technology-enabled retail, I think you look at it under fresh eyes and the right eyes, and you see the totality of that growth. Technology alone is not the answer, okay? So it used to be back before the internet, even in the early days of the internet, it would take a couple years and millions of dollars to get your first company live. To build a piece of software that you were getting venture backed used to take 3 years and about $3 million to get something done. Today, Ethan and I can go start a company and we can be live in 90 days, in 30 days. We can go to 99 Designs, we can have somebody build a website. It should be Magento or BigCommerce or any of the great companies that are here. Still bleed orange, Magento. We can have a site tipped up, we can have sourcing done out of China. We don't even have to leave our keyboard, and we can be live selling shoes online globally in 30 days. So technology used to be a barrier, it used to be a giant barrier, but today it's changed. It's now become a commodity. Magento, we commoditized a lot of what goes on in e-commerce with our open source free product and our enterprise product being low cost. So have some of the cloud solutions out there, and you all know that because you experience that every day. So, good place for a pause here. So, what is the answer? So, as I talk about technology and commoditization and how it's become a commodity, technology loves to commoditize. Think about it. It lives to commoditize your products. It loves features and price. It loves to be compared. It loves to do all that. It loves to just commoditize everything. So my father taught me this lesson here. Whoop, sorry about that. Bought versus sold. If you just draw that continuum up there of bought versus sold, he was in the insurance business. And he'd say, Bob, he goes, look, everything's on a continuum of either a bought product or a sold product. In the insurance business, a bought product is pretty simple. I buy a car in the United States. I have to and should and will and know I need to buy auto insurance. So when I go out looking at it, it's a bought product. I look at features, I look at price. It's information-based, it's very commoditized. As I move this way, I might have a child now or get married, and all of a sudden I start thinking about life insurance. Somebody has to come in and it becomes more of a sold product. Somebody has to come in and tell me the story. Somebody has to explain it to me a little bit more and start to sell me on it. Down at this end, there's other insurance products that he would talk about that are very sold product. You really need to be in there. It's really a sold product. And the sold products, the more they're sold, the more they're story-based, it's emotion-based, it's about the whole value, right? It's a unique offering. So this bought versus sold continuum to me is extremely important. And I contend that with technology, it loves to push everything this way towards commoditization. And if you're going to allow it to push you this way, you're going to be doing all your competition on price. And to me, in the United States, your competitors are Amazon and Walmart, Target. And it's okay if you can either stay small and kind of find the zones in there, or get really big and be better or as good as they are in commoditized selling. So what's the answer to this? Building meaning beyond a commodity. To me, it's about a brand, and a brand's about a story. But I'm talking about building a brand with a soul. When you hear the word brand, you hear, I have a brand. It's hotmotorcycles.com. It's, wanga.com. Whatever it is, that's my brand. Well, it's not. Okay, when I talk about a brand, I'm talking about really building it into something that has a life. Okay, this is the difference. Give it a soul. So I put into this fancy thing called Google the word soul, and I got this in Wikipedia, and I thought this was fascinating. It says, to give life to a body and believe it lives forever. So to give life to a body and believe it lives forever, to me that is what a brand is, and that is what a soul and a brand is, right? You can step away from the business. People give it attributes. People think of it differently. They get excited about it differently than just a product, right? If you move, we've seen this before. Great brands go away. They go bankrupt, things like that. People come along, they write a check to buy that brand, they rekindle it because that brand has meaning. It has a soul. It has a life. So when you look at these guys, before I get to them, this is Nick Graham. So Nick built Joe Boxer. Joe Boxer, a brand out there of basically undershorts, and he built it to a $1 billion plus company. And Nick's got another company, but this is my favorite saying around brands. The brand is the amusement park, the product is the souvenir. So I go in I go to Disneyland. I go with my kids and my family. We have a great time. I go on the rides. We see everything's just groomed and managed, and there's sounds and there's characters, and there's all this experience pouring into me. My brain remembers, and etc. And I buy an item, a pair of sunglasses. I buy something from there, and I walk home with it. And when I bring it out a month later, 2 months later, and I look at it, I don't see a pair of sunglasses. All those emotions come living right back on top of me. So to Nick, the brand is the amusement park. The product is the souvenir. So he's saying, build your amusement park. You look at these guys as examples. Apple doesn't sell computers, right? BMW, cars. Red Bull, I'm not even sure what they sell anymore, but I know where they started. But they got guys jumping out of freaking space balloons, right? It's incredible. Costco. So Costco is our wholesale club. I think it's here too also, right? So Costco, it doesn't have to be about price. It doesn't have to be a premium price. When I think about Costco, I get excited. I'm like, I can't wait to go down there and buy, truckloads of toilet paper to fill up my garage, right? But I get excited about these things. These are brands that mean something. I can feel it, I can smell it, I can taste those things. All my senses start to fire off because they look at it differently. So this is the founder of Starbucks. His name's Howard Schultz, right? And he built Starbucks into a phenomenon out there. It's a multi-billion-dollar company. When you hear Howard on stage talking or at keynotes or talking in front of any audience or even giving interviews, Howard does not talk about coffee. He doesn't talk about mochas. He doesn't talk about lattes. Howard talks about this, people and the third place. Okay, the third place, if you're not familiar with it, for Howard is you have the home, you have work, and you have a third place where you congregate, and it's about community. Community is a very, very powerful thing. It's a common thread in all of these things. But this is Howard. Howard talks about his brand, and every time he's on stage, and every time he's got a keynote, anytime he's talking about anything, he talks about people and humanity in the third place. This is Nick Woodman. You may know Nick as the founder of GoPro. Attaboy. So GoPro, a multi-billion-dollar success. Okay, think about it. There's a GoPro sitting right there. I got a GoPro, in essence, I got a video camera here. It's a video camera. He went public for billions. You know what he did? He created a brand. Actually, what he did is Nick allowed the community to build his brand. He gave them a tool, allowed them to run out with this tool around the world. What a great thing. These people did wonderful things with this tool set and started to evoke this emotional brand by creating great product, great videos off of using his product set. So Nick built a brand called GoPro with a soul. The other one that's very similar to this is Beats. Beats was just sold to Apple for a couple $2 billion. It's a headphones, but it's not. No more than Apple is a computer. They built brands with a soul. So now we come around the corner. This guy here, this was one of the things I had just a blast building over the last couple of years. Magento. So most of the people in here know Magento, but when I joined the founders and we started talking about this, I said, I don't want to build a boring-ass enterprise software company. I don't want guys with briefcase knocking on doors selling software, competing against IBM and ATG. That's no way to do it. We had a vision of we want to be at the core of all e-commerce, which just meant wherever Magento was happening, wherever e-commerce was happening, we just want a little bit of Magento or our whole stack, our mobile stack, any piece. But we wanted to be at the core of e-commerce. And as I was talking to the two founders, we talked about this. I said, we could build a massive company to try to get that done. But really, if we go with, since we're a community-based thing, we go about all our focus is on building other people's success. So all our talent and customers, all our talent and our employees that came into the office, they were to worry about one thing. How do I make everybody else more successful than we will ever be? And frankly, it was almost a little bit less about the merchants. It was about our solution providers out there that we're building. It was about the agencies, and it was about our technology partners. So that was our mission. That's how we approached it. So it was soul. So it really was about enabling other success. So how did that manifest itself? Some of you know these, these things. I speak with other groups that have no idea. Magento, whether you know it or not, now represents over 30% of all sites, e-commerce sites around the globe. 30%. Yeah, I don't know, we're 5, 6 years old now. Billions and billions and billions of dollars transact on it. This is all math. We don't know. We're not a SaaS solution, but this is the calculations that are done out there. 4,000 or 5,000 downloads a day of the Magento modules. My favorite, Magento, the word Magento, is Googled more than the word e-commerce. I got this chart. If you go put it into Google Trends, put in Magento and e-commerce, it's very cool. It just goes past it and it's never come back. I think that's pretty cool. But that's the kind of shit that gets me excited. Okay, so this is the other manifestation is around the world, events started happening. Events that were 500, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 person, 1 to 3 day events. They weren't ours. This was Meet Magento of every country, Bargento, Swissgento. These things happened all around the world. It was an uprising. Everybody was becoming successful with Magento. We just went and gave keynotes. I estimate probably close to 1 million people wake up every morning and make most of their living because of Magento. Whether they're an agency, whether they're a technology company that's just driven our success with their success, or whether it's a merchant out there. The other stories are my Hans and Sven. So you go around the country and you're talking at some events and we're talking about Magento, and I go to these events like in Switzerland, somebody comes up to me and says, hey, I want to thank you. I go, no, I want to thank you. You've got a great agency and you're doing wonderful work. He goes, you don't understand. 2 years ago, Hans and I, we were just building $5,000 websites in the garage. I now have a 100-person agency. I'm doing Christian Louboutin, I'm doing Hermes, and I'm charging $100,500,000 implementations. I got a house, I got a car, I got a wife. Thank you. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. So that's the power of having a brand out there. So for me, some of you I know, because we talked about this, were recently at the Imagine conference, which is our big one. I don't know if you know Coachella, one of our big music festivals. So we've been called the Coachella of e-commerce. We modeled this whole thing with the idea, this whole event with the idea that it's about you and your success, right? Now eBay's been involved and some of it's more for the good and et cetera. But this is the thing we came away with is an event where the whole event was about gathering community. 45 countries people flew in from 45 countries. We had now, I think at the last one, 2,500 people. And it's all about their success in driving it. That orange jacket I wore on stage, when I left the last Imagine, I had everybody that I could sign it. And it's one of my prized possessions because I really loved what we built there. So when you think about that, what's a manifestation? So Schwartz, okay, those are great numbers, et cetera. You're talking about brands, you're talking about soul. I'll give you one other proof point with Magento. So in our very first Imagine conference, I asked people, will you submit one image or a 1-minute video showing your passion for Magento? We got all kinds of things. I'm going to show you this 1-minute video. These guys didn't win, okay?
They're all the same. Magento changed the game. Now they say that open source is the way. We used your code and we made it our own. You can shop online and not leave home. I'm a coder with Magento. I ride with Magento. We have arrived with Magento. We have arrived.
That's pretty good, huh?
Best take yet.
That's like one of my favorites. They didn't win. Okay, she has an e-commerce site that sells T-shirts and things. That's her coder. That's her developer, right? And they got together and they did this. They didn't win. We let the world vote on all this stuff, and another image, and another video won. But I liked it so much, I said, I'm flying you out. I'm flying you out. You're going to get 2 tickets. You're going to come to the event, and et cetera. And I use these as interstitials as we would move along in the event and go throughout the couple days. I'd show them kind of like, and the next Academy Award, right? And we would show this. And so we ran this, and we started running this. And right towards the end, I lifted up the screen, and they came out, and they had a 5-minute full song rendition done to this. Now, no offense, because I love all e-commerce, but do you think our competitors have that? They have other things. Do you think IBM, ATG, Demandware, MarketLive, the competitors have that? This was our weapon. This was our weapon. We had soul that we built into the company. And this is somebody you may know. He's a local boy, Carl Hartman. And Carl is one of those founders. So you saw Tamando was one of the companies that I do business with. Carl is CEO and founder of Tamando. Carl is one of those founders that I just think is just amazing. He's one of those guys that you say, hey, okay, you know where we got to go? We got to go about 4 miles that way, and through the city and all, 4 miles that way. Instead of taking all the roads, he reminds me kind of my conversation with Bezos. Instead of taking all the roads, I'm just gonna freaking walk right through every building and mow it down. It's just faster that way. I'm gonna get there, right? So Carl's built a wonderful company, and what he did, what I thought was fascinating, and here in Oz, you guys, giant country, disparate cities out there. You don't have a FedEx or a UPS to get sloppy with, right? We did in the United States. And he saw that and he said, that's got to be fixed. There's got to be a smoother way to pull this whole kind of platform of intelligent fulfillment together. But when you talk to Carl, what I like about it is this is something that, I've spent about last year and a half with him. And Mateship is something that you all know better than I know. But it was something that Carl and I talked a lot about. And I said, Carl, the people of Australia, that's the magic. And I said, as you're rolling this out across the country, what is the magic? I said, it's not this, hey, let's get a shrimp and a Barbie kind of U.S. stuff. I don't want that cheeseball-y shit out there. He says, Bob, it's about mateship. He goes, it's about mateship. And I think I want to bring that across, keep it core to our culture as we roll out across the globe. He goes, it's what ties us together. It's what's created our culture, right? This is the manifestation. This is an added little bonus slide in there. So you may or may not know, with all that, one of the attributes of success is we just had a company called Neopost, a French public company, a multi-billion-dollar public company, just invest $50 million into Tamando for global growth. This is another company, Mike Mothner, W Promote. So Mike is another 31-year-old founder, and he's just a great guy. And he's got a digital agency called W Promote. It's got about, I think today, probably about 180, 185 people. He started it in college. He was interviewing at Goldman Sachs. He's down there with the managing director in the final rounds. He went to Dartmouth. His mom's proud of him. You're going to be a banker. Very good, right? And he went to that final interview. And in that final interview, he's sitting there, and the guy looks at his resume. The resume, of course. W Promote, it's him in his college room and 2 other buddies. Grows 40% per year, per month, or something like that. The guy goes, if it's doing so well, why would you want to come work for us? And Mike kind of sat there. He sat there a little too long. Apparently, just a little too long. And the guy goes, well then. And he goes, well then. And he got out there, walked out of the office, and he called his mom and said, Mom, I'm going to do this internet thing. That was many years ago. He's now got a great agency. Mike, when he gets up, he doesn't talk about digital and conversion and et cetera. Mike talks about one thing, making Mondays suck less, right? He's got a culture where he says, I want people to come into my office every Monday and be excited about business. Now, for me, you can ask my family, this is the way I live. I love what I do. And Mike's decided to make that core to his culture, right? Again, proof point. I'll give you a proof point on this one. Ad Age magazine, so it's our big ad media publication. It's been around for decades. It ranks best cultures, best ad agencies, not digital, not anything, but total ad agencies around the United States. W Promote was named in the top 100 and actually was number 2 best ad agency to work for. And his culture and his approach to making the world suck less manifests itself also to its clients. So he wants you as a client and a customer to walk in Monday and be excited because you're getting the results. We're doing it. We're there for you, and et cetera. Culture, soul. So I'm going to keep beating you guys up with this. Okay? Here's the other thing. Anybody know what that is? come on, sales funnel, right? This is what you all stare at every day. This is what every e-commerce person does. They stare at that line right there, that 3%, 1%, 2%, whatever the number is, might be a little bit bigger. And every day we stare at it and we look at retargeting, recommendation, speed, upsell, abandonment, all the metrics. We have meetings and reports all about taking that 3% line and moving it to 3.000001, and we're freaking excited about that, right? It's ludicrous, right? It's the right thing. We want more people buying from us. But I'm like, why aren't we worried about the other 97%? Now, in the United States, we have this thing about the 97% versus 3%. It's a whole big political battle, but I contend we're having the same battle right here. So you've paid in one way or another for 97 out of 100 people to come to your, the other 97 people out of 100 to come to your site. Your brand, your recognition, a Google AdWords, something out there, they came to you, okay? Why aren't we focusing at least this much energy also on this space here by making people understand who you are, let their hearts race, get into, as they call it, the hearts and minds of your customers that come visit the site. Rather than just taking all of this stuff and worried about the 97th person, can I get his finger? Can I get just a finger through there so I go from 3% to 3.0001? What are we doing about the 97%? How are we getting them excited about your company? How are we going to get them to go tell your story? How do we get them to share? How do we get them excited about it? Earlier this morning, Andre talked about this. He talked about the idea, it's like, I just have products, I got wine, but I'm creating a brand and I'm building a brand with a soul. This is a buddy of mine, Blake Nordstrom, CEO and CEO of a company called Nordstrom. And Blake, in case I know from a brand standpoint, you're familiar with Nordstrom. Nordstrom does, as a fashion and apparel retailer, over $15 billion of sales today. It's probably, I would say, and I'm biased, but I would say is one of the best retailers in the United States. These guys, Wall Street loves them. It's family controlled, so they don't think short, they think medium and long. They've done some aggressive things, movements, value, everything's about value into driving results for long-term for the company. When you hear Blake speak, when he will, and I'll explain that in a second, but when you hear him speak, he doesn't talk about dresses. He doesn't talk about fashion. He doesn't talk about apparel. He will talk about shoes. He loves shoes. This is what he talks about. Really one simple thing. And we're at Nordstrom, serving the customer is what you learn. If you're going to get up and talk about anything, if you're going to think about anything, if you're going to look at a piece of technology, it's a math equation. The other side of that equal sign is something about the customer. If I'm going to do this, how does it get to the customer? We are building the e-commerce website because our customers want it. We can serve customers wherever they are. That's what Blake talks about in a bunch of different ways. The reason he doesn't speak at many events is he says, look, if I'm speaking, I'm not listening. Again, it's about the customer. So it's deep in their culture. It's deep in their culture. You may know that as Nordstrom rolled out across the United States, they started up in our hometown in Seattle, and then they went down into Oregon, and then down to California, and then marched across the United States. As they did that, all the majors freaked out. Because Nordstrom was known for customer service, right? They were known for taking back things. Everybody else was, no returns. Or you can bring it back in 2 weeks, but for store credit. Nordstrom changed the way that the United States served customers. And Blake would tell me CEOs of major companies out there are writing memos before the internet, before email, writing memos saying, the most important thing now is customer service. He goes, that's not the answer. It's not a memo-driven thing. This is a culture-driven thing. You've got to keep dripping this in the culture. So people always ask me about Nordstrom. How do they do this? What is this? And to me, this is the best manifestation I can come up with of it, is customer service is not saying, can I help you? Would you like to try that on? How can I help you? Have a good day. Customer service is defined. When shit happens, and it happens every day, how do you handle it? How are you set up to handle it? Nordstrom's culture isn't just do the right thing in customer service. It's organizationally structured with Blake at the bottom of the pyramid. You've seen org charts with this flipped up, Mr. CEO up at the top. I have a hard time with words like employee, get the message down. It's all very hierarchical, the wrong direction. Now we've heard about some new technology companies and they're doing flat. All kinds of interesting things with flat. This is saying the opposite. This is saying CEOs down below, I serve everybody who serves the customer. The guys at the top, the guys closest to the top is the sales talent. And the sales talent are the floor reps, right? So as Nordstrom was growing, for instance, if you got promoted, they would make an announcement that Bob Schwartz was promoted down the pyramid to executive vice president, right? So it's not just little manifestations that Bain came and threw up on the wall and did this. This is the way they live their culture, right? It's manifested in everything they do. They have a handbook, their original handbook. Finally, lawyers and HR chipped away at them in the last 10, 15 years. But the original handbook for a century was rule number 1, use your best judgment. Rule number 2, if you're confused, see rule number 1. That was it, right? It was about empowering these people right here to make the best thing. So some of the manifestations and the stories are, somebody shows up at Nordstrom, they have tires. We'd like to return these. Well, Nordstrom doesn't sell tires. They took them back. You hear these stories of people that show up that are standing there at the door waiting for the store to open with boxes. Aunt May died, and we cleaned out her closet. We'd like to return all this. We'll take it back, right? So what Nordstrom ended up doing, when you think about this, the thing is they paid their salespeople a slightly better commission. They were motivated around, emotionally motivated around serving a customer letters, customer things like that. Nordstrom had a higher sales cost ratio and a much higher return rate than anybody in the country. But they didn't spend any money on marketing. But these stories perpetuated themselves. You could say Nordstrom deployed social marketing from the early get-go. Okay, so I was hired by Nordstrom. They had no website, no e-commerce. They said, it's time for us to do this. And they said, let's get going with this. And I said, okay, good. And they said, here's what we want you to do. We want you to launch. We want you to build Nordstrom.com. And then in a year and a half, we're going to spin it off as a separate company. It was, the bubble era and all that. But in doing so, one of the things I said is thinking about the soul. If we spin off Nordstrom.com, a lot of the world just knows us as a big fashion apparel retailer. I said, I don't want to be like Macy's. How do I bring the soul of what Nordstrom is forward? And Nordstrom was born as a shoe store, and way back when it had the world's largest shoe store in Seattle. So we decided we'd launch NordstromShoes.com, and here's the way we told our story on television. There were 3 commercials. This is just one.
Make room for shoes. The world's biggest shoe store is here. NordstromShoes.com.
So we had we ran those on all the typical .com things, Ally McBeal and et cetera. But the whole idea was triggering an emotional response around shoes, a particular category. And if people had an emotional response around that, by definition, they would know Nordstrom has other stuff. Let's pick a point and attack on that point. That's what we did. And it was fascinating. After I had conversations or give keynotes, you always have a press you want to talk to because you can talk to the customer. You have technology providers giving you interesting stuff. But there was always a cluster of women. I had no idea what we were doing when we set this off. We taught the world when we launched NordstromShoes.com, we had over 10 million pairs of shoes in inventory, then 20. We taught the world how to do drop ship, the shoe world how to do drop ship. And women, after a thing, there would be like 5 or 6 women. They just wanted to talk to me about their shoes. That's it. I'm like, this is really cool. I had no idea, right? So That's the arc about building soul and building a brand. Those are the things that define you from being just a commodity, and technology loves to commoditize, right? What I'm going to show you are the things, maybe it's not the most cutting edge things, but I'm going to show you two things that I think are really interesting trends that I believe touch the soul. One is good real. So a bunch of you probably have young kids, high school, college, out of college, up to 30 years old, come to you and say, hey, I want to pick your brain. Right? I used to get it a lot, and still do. And some of the conversations are, I'm an investment banker. I've been at Goldman, and I'm 25, I'm 27, et cetera. They want to talk to me about this. Always ended with the same thing. Will you introduce me to Tom's Shoes? Tom's Shoes in the United States, if you don't know, you buy a pair, they give a pair. You buy a pair, they donate a pair. They were one of the early companies in this last wave to do this, to unite their brand directly with giving in a very one-to-one basis, right? So I started to think about what happened. And here in the United States, I looked at kids that were coming in my door and said, well, the first 10 years of their life, this is what they saw if they lived in the US, pretty much around the world. Donald Trump, greed is good, jets, bigger houses, get more, I want more, etc. It was us, right? That's what they saw. They were children of ours. They saw it on TV, and they saw the parents. In the next 10 years of their life, I got to say, is a little bit of a what the fuck, right? Foreclosures, Mr. Madoff, war, 9/11, foreclosure. I mean, if I was a kid growing up in the first 10 years, I'm seeing a math equation that says, if this equals this, I don't want it. I want to do some things differently. I want to be good in this world and do good, right? So I think that was one of the things. The other thing, and I don't know if this is the same here in Australia, I have to assume it's the same, shit's changed, right? When I grew up, I had one trophy in Little League Baseball. I never hit the ball. Billy Hummer hit the home run to win us the championship, and I got a trophy. Isn't that weird? I remember Billy Hummer. I was like probably this big. I had one trophy. Amy, my wife and I, my bride and I, we walked into a house. We were looking for our first house. And I remember walking into one of these houses as we were shopping, walked into this room and looked around. It's a kid's room, a girl's room. All these trophies are on the wall. They're all for swimming. I leaned over to her and I said, I think she's an Olympic athlete. Right? Right? But the other side to this everybody's a winner kind of mentality that we've invoked into our kids and into this generation also begs a deep-rooted question for them. Why should somebody be a loser? Why should the kids from Africa suffer? Why should people go without shoes? Why should there be, why should these diseases be rolling out across the world? So I think that's an important thing that has affected that generation and the way they look at the world. I see it all the time. These are some companies that in the United States, and one hope I deal with, which is a wine brand. They've done a marvelous job. And no, they don't donate a bottle of wine for each bottle sold. No, but they're a great brand. Good 360, which is here in Australia. I'm on the board, and we just started, Carl helped with it, and it's founded by a woman named Allison here in Australia also. And what Good 360 does, it's a not-for-profit. Corporations donate their excess inventory, surplus inventory, returned inventory. They get a nice tax deduction for it. And we put it in a marketplace and allow not-for-profits actually to take everything for free. They just pay for transport costs. In the United States, we moved $300 million of goods last year, $9 billion to date. So these are some of the, thank you very much. So those are some of the manifestations of good, and I think it's really important. It's one way of creating soul with your brand. This is my bride up there, and I put that picture in it because she's seen this presentation before, and as I came to Australia, she goes, that what you're about to see, she goes, could you put, could you not use it because it doesn't look very good, right? I'm like, okay, I'll put a good picture up there of us first. So here's what happened with here's what happened with Oculus and why I think about it. We all know Oculus Rift. Who's tried Oculus? Okay, that's about right. It's maybe a couple handfuls of people. So when I heard about Oculus and virtual headsets, I thought, hate it. I laughed when Facebook bought these guys for $2 billion. I laughed. I go to the movies, you put on those things, I freaking hate it. Just get them off my eyes. I hate it. It's just in the way. I'm not going to sit in front. I have a TV with that stuff. I'm not going to use it. I'm not going to sit there with my family like, It just doesn't do enough value to me, right? My son was hired by a creative agency while he was in college, in high school, something. And to do some development work, they were going to do something with Oculus Rift. They said, hey, would you do this and try this thing for us, find out what it's like? So he went and procured one of these version 1s, brought it home, and he put it on me. And I have seen a version of an amazing future world. When I say amazing, this is going to have a major impact. You put one of these things on, and as you look around, the world pivots. It doesn't matter if it's a cartoon or not. You have headphones on, and your sound pivots around with you. You are there. It is absolutely, absolutely amazing. I have seen one version of something very powerful for the future. As my son also says, Dad, it also could be, kind of the next RJR of the future too, in that the big tobacco industry, we don't know. You get lost in these things too. It's just amazing. So here's what we do in our family. We geek out. My 2 sons, they love doing really interesting things. They bring things home. And so we put Mom in the hot seat, and we don't let Mom know that we're videoing her. So again, I like doing this. Here's my story. Here's a little bit of context to it. Now I'm going to give you a proof point. This is my bride on a roller coaster. It's a little over a minute.
Oh no. Whoa. Oh, I don't like it. It's too scary.
Watch your legs just.
Oh, God. Oh my God.
Now she could look around. She's scared. She won't look around.
Look behind you.
No. Becker, go away.
Is there leaning? So that last thing was make it stop. All right. So it's amazing. We have, yeah. Thank you. It's amazing. I mean, I can't even get her to react that way to me. I mean, wait, not quite. Yeah, wait. It's amazing because your brain, you have 2 brains going on in there. You have the danger Will Robbins, danger, the kind of the reptile brain in there that functions for fear and all our core attributes. And then you have real brain that's saying, I'm sitting in a chair. And that creates this really interesting tension that you see in that. It's an amazing, amazing thing. And I don't know all the manifestations for it. Do I believe that people are going to be, it's key to e-commerce? I don't know. But I think when I put it on, when I put that thing on, I'm like, wow, it's really, really powerful. And it's just an absolutely amazing thing. So, summary? Weaponization of retail is kind of the way I look at it. This technology-enabled retail. Massive value is going to be created taking technology and understanding how do we apply it to retail, online, offline, wherever, to create better experiences for our customer. Technology alone is not the magic. It loves to commoditize. You need to ask yourself if it loves to commoditize and I'm better suited as a brand, you really have to work hard at creating a brand and a culture with soul, which gets you down to that 97%. We focus on the 3, we focus on conversion. There's a huge opportunity in that 97%. I'd even say it's bigger than that. If you're a brand in particular, and I give you a choice, a retail store anywhere in the world that's fantastic, Or I'm going to give you keys to CNN, CNBC, ABC, major global broadcast presence. Major retail store, New York, Madison Avenue, wherever. This is what you should have. This is it. We're all worried about this over here. I contend the brand should have a good enough site. It doesn't mean it's bad. I'm talking about a solid B+, A-, somewhere in there. How do we you have the keys to a national broadcast, a global broadcast system. It's your job as a brand to understand how to use it to get to that 97% and the rest of the world. And win their hearts and minds. So, this is Bob Schwartz. He loves building, okay, I'll do it one more time. My company, 47B, and I love building companies with soul. You're not going to hear me talk about conversion. You're not going to hear me talking about, ROI and et cetera when I'm having a conversation and a big conversation. You're going to hear me talking about brands, building brands with soul. And it's my hope that just like Nick Graham said, the amusement park and the prize, that when you go back and it's a month later, a week later, you see this tag that you're wearing sitting around your office, you see the conference handbook, Phil sends you an email, and that's the prize. Something reminds you of this event. And it's my hope when you remember that event, I become part of your amusement park and you think about building brands with a soul. So I really appreciate your time and I love Australia. Thanks for the invite.